The north is cold and full of whispers.
The street outside Littlefinger's brothel stank of piss and stale wine. Ned Stark stood with Jory Castle and 2 Stark guardsmen, their breath misting in the cool King's Landing evening. They had come looking for answers about Jon Arryn's death, about the bastard blacksmith's apprentice Gendry, about the web of lies Ned could feel tightening around him. Instead, they found Jaime Lannister. The Kingslayer sat on his golden mare with a dozen Lannister guardsmen behind him, his white cloak draped over armor that caught the last light of the sun. He looked every inch the knight from the songs. Golden-haired, handsome, arrogant. "Lord Stark," Jaime said. His voice was pleasant. "My brother Tyrion, I understand you took him captive." "Your brother was taken by Lady Catelyn," Ned said carefully, "in the Riverlands. I had nothing to do with it." "Curious, your wife takes my brother prisoner and you claim ignorance." Jaime's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Tell me, Lord Stark, if I took your wife prisoner, would you claim ignorance of that as well?" "I'm ordering you to release him," Ned said. His hand moved toward his sword. "In the name of King Robert?" "Fuck King Robert." Jaime dismounted in one fluid movement. He drew his sword. "I want my brother back." The fight happened fast. Jaime's men moved on his signal. Jory stepped forward to protect Ned and died instantly. A Lannister guard drove a dagger through his eye before Ned could even draw his blade. The 2 Stark guards fell moments later, cut down by superior numbers. Ned drew ice and faced Jaime Lannister alone. They fought for perhaps 30 seconds. Ned was a skilled swordsman trained in the Northern style, strong, direct, efficient. But Jaime was the finest sword in the 7 Kingdoms. Within moments, Ned was on the defensive, giving ground, his Valyrian steel blade barely keeping pace with Jaime's attacks. Then one of the Lannister spearmen moved. Not on Jaime's order, not as part of any plan, just instinct, seeing his lord fighting, seeing an opportunity to end it quickly. The spear thrust caught Ned in the lower abdomen. The blade went in deep. Ned felt it punch through leather and cloth and skin, felt the terrible wrongness of steel inside his body where steel should never be. He gasped and staggered backward, his hand going to the wound. Jaime's face transformed. The arrogance vanished, replaced by genuine horror. "No," Jaime said. "No, I didn't." He wheeled on the spearman and struck him across the face with the pommel of his sword. The man dropped, unconscious. Jaime looked at Ned, at the blood spreading across his doublet, at the way Ned had gone gray. "I didn't order that," Jaime said. "I swear I didn't." Ned fell to one knee. The pain was enormous and getting worse. He could feel something vital torn inside him, could feel his body's alarm at the damage. Jaime stepped forward, reaching out as if to help, then stopped. His men were watching. The street was filling with people drawn by the sounds of fighting. This was a disaster. For both of them. "Get the maester," Jaime snapped at his men, then quieter to Ned. "I'm sorry. This wasn't... I didn't mean..." Ned couldn't speak. The pain had stolen his breath. Jaime turned and ran for his horse. He mounted in one smooth motion and looked back at Ned one final time, his face full of something Ned couldn't quite read. Guilt, fear, regret. Then he rode hard for the city gates, his men scattering after him. Peter Baelish arrived with the city watch moments later. He took one look at Ned's wound and went pale. "Get Lord Stark to the Tower of the Hand," Littlefinger ordered. "Now. And someone send for Maester Pycelle." They carried Ned through the streets on a makeshift litter. Every jostle sent white-hot pain through his gut. He could feel blood soaking through the bandages they'd pressed against the wound, could feel something fundamentally wrong in the way his body was responding. By the time they reached the Tower of the Hand, Ned knew he was dying. Maester Pycelle examined the wound with careful, trembling hands. The old maester's face told Ned everything he needed to know before Pycelle spoke. The maester looked at the wound, looked at Ned's face, and his expression settled into professional resignation. "The bowel is pierced," Pycelle said quietly. "I can give you milk of the poppy for the pain. I can clean the wound. But Lord Stark..." He stopped. "The infection will set in within hours. Once it does, there is nothing I can do. I give you 1 day, perhaps 2 if the gods are merciful." "I understand," Ned said. His voice was steady despite the pain. He had been a soldier. He had seen gut wounds before. He knew what came next. Fever, delirium, a slow, painful slide into death. "I need to send messages," Ned continued. "Before the pain gets worse. Before I can't think clearly. I'll fetch parchment." "No." Ned gripped Pycelle's wrist. "Send for King Robert. Immediately. Tell him I'm dying and I must speak with him alone. Tell him it cannot wait." Pycelle hesitated. "His grace is hunting." "Then find him. Pull him off his horse if you have to. This is more important than any hunt." Ned's grip tightened. "And send for my daughters. I need to see Sansa and Arya, now." "Of course, my lord." Pycelle left. Ned lay in the bed and stared at the ceiling and tried to think through what came next. He was going to die, that was certain. The question was what he could accomplish before death took him. The secret about Cersei's children, Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, all of them born of Cersei and Jaime's incest, none of them Robert's true heirs. That truth had to be told. If Joffrey took the throne believing himself the rightful king, the realm would be built on a lie that would eventually tear it apart. But there was another secret, one Ned had carried for 15 years. Jon Snow was not Ned's bastard son. Jon was Lyanna and Rhaegar's child, born at the Tower of Joy, hidden from Robert because Robert would have killed the baby the moment he learned the truth. Ned had protected Jon by claiming him as his own bastard, by enduring Catelyn's quiet resentment and the realm's assumption that honorable Ned Stark had dishonored his marriage bed. Ned had intended to carry both secrets to his grave, but if he died now, if he died without telling Robert about Joffrey, then Robert would never know. The succession would pass to a bastard born of incest. The realm would fracture when the truth eventually came out, as it inevitably would. And Jon. God's Jon. If Ned died without securing Jon's safety, without making Robert promise to protect him, then Jon would spend the rest of his life at the Wall, never knowing who he truly was, never understanding why Ned had lied to him. Ned closed his eyes and made his decision. He would tell Robert everything, both secrets, all of it. It was the only way. Sansa and Arya arrived before Robert did. His daughters came into the chamber looking frightened and young. Sansa in a fine southern gown with her hair elaborately styled, Arya in simpler clothes with dirt on her hands from whatever she had been doing when the summons came. "Father?" Sansa's voice was small. "They said you were hurt." "Come here," Ned said. "Both of you." They came to his bedside. Sansa took his hand carefully, as if afraid of hurting him. Arya climbed onto the bed beside him, her gray eyes studying his face. "How bad is it?" Arya asked. She was 9 years old and already too brave for her own good. "Bad," Ned said honestly. "The maester says I have a day, perhaps two." Sansa made a small sound of distress. Arya's face went very still. "I need you both to listen to me," Ned continued. "And I need you to be strong. Can you do that?" They nodded. "When I'm gone, you're going to return to Winterfell, both of you. King Robert will make the arrangements. You'll go home to your mother and your brothers." Ned looked at Sansa. "I know you wanted to stay in King's Landing. I know you wanted to marry Prince Joffrey. But sweetling, that marriage cannot happen. The king will explain why after I'm gone." "I don't understand," Sansa said. Tears were running down her face. "You don't need to understand right now. You just need to trust me." Ned squeezed her hand. "Go home. Be with your family. Help your mother. And remember," his voice caught, "remember that I love you, both of you. You are the best parts of me." Arya pressed her face against his shoulder. "You're not dying. You can't. I am. But Arya, you're going to be fine. You're fierce and strong and clever. Take care of your sister. Help her get home safely. I will." And Sansa, Ned looked at his eldest daughter. "You have a good heart, a kind heart. Don't let this city make you hard. Go north and remember who you are. A Stark of Winterfell." Sansa was crying too hard to speak. She just nodded. They stayed with him for another hour. Ned held them and memorized the weight of them, the warmth of their small bodies against his, the particular smell of Arya's hair and the softness of Sansa's hand. He was leaving them, abandoning them in this terrible southern city. But Robert would protect them. Robert had to protect them. Finally, a servant came to announce that the king had arrived. "You need to go now," Ned told his daughters. "Wait outside. The king and I need to speak privately." They left reluctantly. Arya looked back at the door, her face fierce and grieving. Then she was gone. Ned lay in the bed and waited for his oldest friend. Robert Baratheon came into the chamber like a storm. He was enormous, taller and broader than Ned, his black beard shot through with gray, his face red from riding hard back to the city. He smelled of horse and wine and the particular musk of a man who had been hunting. "Ned," Robert's voice was rough. "What in seven hells happened?" They said, "Jaime Lannister." "Close the door," Ned said, "and bar it." Robert stared at him. "What?" "Close the door, Robert. What I have to tell you cannot be overheard. Not by servants, not by guards, not by anyone." Robert's expression shifted from confusion to concern. He closed the door and dropped the bar across it. When he turned back, his face had lost some of its bluster. "How bad is it?" Robert asked. "I'm dying. The maester gave me a day, maybe two. The wound is mortal." Ned's voice was steady. "Sit down, Robert. Please. I need you to listen to everything I'm about to say. All of it. And I need you to stay calm." Robert pulled a chair to the bedside and sat heavily. "Tell me." Ned looked at his friend. His king, his brother in all but blood, the man he had fought beside through rebellion and war. Robert's face was already showing the damage of 15 years on the throne, the drinking, the eating, the slow rot of a man who had won a war and found that victory was hollow. "I've discovered something," Ned began, "about Cersei, about her children." Robert's jaw tightened. "What about them?" "Joffrey is not your son." The words fell into silence. Robert stared at Ned. "What did you say?" "Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, none of them are yours." Ned kept his voice level. "They're Jaime's children. Cersei has been committing adultery with her twin brother for years. Your children, the children you believe are your heirs, are bastards born of incest." Robert stood abruptly. The chair fell backward with a crash. His face had gone purple. You're saying my wife." He couldn't finish the sentence. "I investigated. After Jon Arryn died, I followed the same path he followed. I looked at your bastards, Gendry, Maya Stone, Bara. All of them have black hair, Robert. Black hair and your build. The seed is strong. Baratheon blood dominates every union." Ed's voice was relentless now. "But your legitimate children all have golden hair, green eyes, Lannister coloring, not Baratheon. And when I looked at the histories, 300 years of Baratheon marriages, every single child had black hair. Every one." Robert was shaking. "Jon Arryn knew this?" "Yes. He was investigating when he died. I believe Cersei had him poisoned before he could tell you. I'll kill her." Robert's voice was very quiet. "I'll kill her and Jaime both. He stopped, turned to face Ned. "You're certain? You're absolutely certain?" "Yes." Robert sat down heavily on the floor. He pressed his hands against his face. For a long moment, the only sound was his ragged breathing. 15 years, Robert finally said. 15 years I've been raising another man's bastards. Calling them mine, loving them." He stopped. "I never loved them. Not really. Joffrey is a vicious little shit. I hoped he'd grow out of it. Thought maybe he just needed to get older. He's Cersei's son," Ned said quietly. "Through and through. And Jaime's." Robert's voice was bleak. "The Kingslayer. The man who murdered the king he swore to protect. Of course Cersei would fuck him. Of course she'd give me his bastards and laugh about it. Robert, there's more. What else could there possibly be?" Ned took a breath. This was the moment. The secret he had carried for 15 years. The lie that had defined his entire relationship with Robert. "Jon Snow is not my son," Ned said. Robert blinked. "What? Jon is not my bastard. I never fathered a child on any woman during the war. Ned's voice broke. "Jon is Lyanna's son." The silence was absolute. Robert's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, disbelief, dawning horror. "Lyanna," Robert said. "Your sister Lyanna." "My Lyanna, yes. But Lyanna died. You told me. You said she died in your arms in that tower in Dorne. She did. She died giving birth to Jon. But Robert, you need to understand." Ned pushed himself up on the bed despite the pain. "Lyanna was never kidnapped. She went with Rhaegar willingly. She loved him. They were married in secret. There was a ceremony, a septon, vows spoken before the seven. Jon is their legitimate son." Robert stood again. He was backing away from the bed as if Ned had struck him. "No," Robert said. "No. Rhaegar kidnapped her. He raped her. She died because of what he did to her. She loved him," Ned said. The words were like knives. "I'm sorry, Robert. I know that's not what you want to hear, but it's the truth. Lyanna chose Rhaegar. She bore his child willingly, and when she was dying, she made me promise to protect the baby, to hide him from you." "From me?" Robert's voice was rising. "Why would she?" "Because you would have killed him." Ned held Robert's gaze. "You called the murder of Rhaegar's other children justice. You said Elya's babies deserved to die for being dragon spawn. If you had known Jon existed, if you had known he was Rhaegar's son, you would have ordered him killed the moment you found out." Robert opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "So I lied," Ned continued. "I claimed Jon as my own bastard. I let the realm think I had dishonored my marriage. I let Catelyn hate me for bringing another woman's child into our home. I did it all to protect my sister's son from you." Robert sat down on the floor again. He looked like a man who had been struck in the head with a warhammer. "Lyanna loved him," Robert said. "Not a question, a statement of devastated fact. She loved Rhaegar, not me. I don't know if she ever loved you, Robert. I'm sorry, but I know she loved Rhaegar. And she loved her son. She died asking me to protect him, the boy at Winterfell, the quiet one with the dark eyes." Robert's voice was hollow. "That's Rhaegar's son. Yes." I stood 3 feet from him and I didn't know. I looked at him and Robert stopped. I felt something wrong. I thought he looked strange. His eyes, he pressed his hands against his face again. Gods damn it all. They sat in silence. Outside, the city moved through its evening routines. Merchants closing shops, nobles heading to feasts, the gold cloaks changing watch. Inside this room, 2 men faced truths that changed everything. "Why are you telling me this?" Robert finally asked. "Why now?" "Because I'm dying, and because I need you to promise me something." Ned leaned forward despite the pain. "Robert, I'm begging you. Don't hurt Jon. He's innocent. He's just a boy who grew up at Winterfell thinking he was a bastard. He's done nothing wrong. He doesn't even know who he really is." "He's Rhaegar's son," Robert said. The words were flat. "He's Lyanna's son. You're Lyanna, the woman you loved enough to fight a war for." Ned's voice was urgent now. "I know you hate Rhaegar. I know you hate the Targaryens. But Jon is not Rhaegar. He's a good boy, honorable, kind. He loves his siblings. He trains hard and studies hard, and all he wants is to belong somewhere. Please, Robert, please don't punish him for his father's sins." Robert said nothing. "If you ever loved Lyanna, if that love meant anything, protect her son. Let him live. Let him have a life." Ned's voice broke. "Please! I'm dying and I can't protect him anymore. I need you to do it for me." Robert stood and walked to the window. He looked out over King's Landing, the city he had won, the throne he had taken, the kingdom he had never wanted. "Joffrey is not my son," Robert said quietly. "The boy I've been raising as my heir is Jaime Lannister's bastard. And the bastard I barely noticed at Winterfell is actually Rhaegar Targaryen's legitimate son and has a better claim to my throne than I do. Jon doesn't want the throne. He doesn't even know he's Targaryen. But he exists, and people will know. Once you're dead, once I act on what you've told me," Robert turned from the window. "The realm will know everything. About Cersei's bastards, about Jon's parentage. And then what? How do I keep him safe when half the lords in Westeros will want to either kill him or crown him?" "I don't know," Ned admitted, "but Robert, you're the king. You're the most powerful man in Westeros. If you protect him, if you declare that he's under your protection, who would dare move against him?" Robert laughed. It was an ugly sound. "You have more faith in my power than I do." "I have faith in you," Ned said. "You're a better man than you think you are, Robert. I've seen it. When it matters, when lives are at stake, you do the right thing." "Do I?" Robert moved back to the bedside. He sat on the edge of the bed and looked at Ned with an expression of such raw grief that it made Ned's chest ache. "I'm a shit king, Ned. I hate every moment of it. I drink too much and I eat too much and I spend the treasury on tourneys and feasts. Because if I have to sit in that throne room one more day listening to people whine about taxes, I'll go mad. I know. And now you tell me that the woman I loved chose someone else. That the children I thought were mine are bastards born of incest. That the one person in this whole damned kingdom I trust completely has been lying to me for 15 years. Robert's voice was shaking. "What am I supposed to do with that, Ned? How am I supposed to—" "You're supposed to be king," Ned interrupted. "You're supposed to do what's right. Not what's easy, not what makes you feel better, what's right." Robert was quiet for a long time. "Tell me what you want," he finally said. "Exactly. What do you want me to do? Arrest Cersei. Try her for treason and adultery. Disinherit Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen? They're innocent. Robert, please don't hurt them, but they cannot inherit the throne. Name Stannis your heir. He's your brother and he's the lawful successor." Ned paused. "And protect Jon, please. However you do it, send him to the wall, legitimize him as a Stark, name him a ward of the crown. I don't care. Just keep him safe." "Legitimize him as a Stark?" Robert's eyebrows rose. "Not as a Targaryen. He doesn't want to be a Targaryen. He wants to be a Stark. That's who he is in every way that matters." Robert stood and paced the room. He was thinking, Ned could see him working through it, calculating consequences, weighing options. "If I do this," Robert said slowly, "if I arrest Cersei and disinherit Joffrey and tell the realm the truth, Tywin Lannister will march on King's Landing with every sword in the Westerlands. He won't let this stand. Then you fight him. You have the North, the Stormlands, Stannis' forces. The Riverlands will support you through Catelyn's family. That's more than enough to defeat Tywin. It's war. It's justice." Ned's voice was firm. "The Lannisters committed treason. They put bastards on the path to the throne through incest and murder. If you let that stand, if you do nothing, then what's the point of being king at all?" Robert stopped pacing. He looked at Ned for a long moment. "You're dying," Robert said. "You're lying in that bed, dying, and you're lecturing me about doing my duty. You're the most stubborn bastard I've ever met. Promise me, Robert, promise me you'll do what's right. For you, for the man who's been my truest friend for 30 years, even while lying to my face about the most important thing in the world." Robert's voice was bitter. "Fine, I promise. I'll arrest Cersei. I'll disinherit her bastards. I'll name Stannis my heir. And He stopped. "I'll protect the boy, Jon. I'll keep him safe. Swear it. I swear by all the gods, old and new, I will protect Jon Snow. I will not harm him. I will not let anyone else harm him." Robert's voice was heavy. "Is that enough?" "Yes," Ned said. Relief flooded through him. "Thank you." Robert sat back down. "What happens now?" "Now I die, and you become the king you were always supposed to be." "I was never supposed to be king. I was supposed to be a soldier, a fighter. I was good at that." Robert rubbed his face. "Ned, I'm sorry. For all of it. For not seeing what Cersei was. For making you carry these secrets alone. He stopped. "For loving Lyanna so much that you had to lie to keep her son safe from me. I understand why you hate the Targaryens. After what Aerys did to my father and brother, it's not just that." Robert's voice was quiet. "It's that Rhaegar had her. He had Lyanna. He had the one thing I wanted more than the throne or the crown or any of it. And now I find out she wanted him too. That she chose him. That she died giving him a son." He laughed bitterly. "The gods have a sick sense of humor. The gods have nothing to do with this. We make our own choices." Ned's voice was getting weaker. The pain was increasing and he could feel the fever beginning to take hold. "Robert, there's one more thing. When Jon comes south, when you tell him the truth, be gentle with him. He's going to feel like his whole life was a lie. He's going to be angry and confused and he won't understand why I never told him." "What should I tell him?" "Tell him I loved him. Tell him I was proud to be his father, even if I wasn't his father by blood. Tell him," Ned's voice broke. "Tell him I'm sorry. For all of it." Robert gripped Ned's hand. "I will." They sat together in silence as the light faded from the windows and the fever began to climb. Ned Stark died 20 hours later. The infection set in quickly, just as Maester Pycelle had predicted. The fever rose and brought delirium with it. Ned thrashed in the bed, calling for Lyanna, for Catelyn, for his children. The milk of the poppy kept the worst of the pain at bay, but it couldn't stop the relentless march toward death. Robert stayed with him through all of it. The King of the Seven Kingdoms sat beside Ned's bed and held his hand and listened to his dying friend's rambling. When Ned was lucid, they spoke of the past. Of the Eyrie where they had been fostered together, of the rebellion they had fought, of the friends they had lost. When Ned slipped into fever dreams, Robert just held his hand and said nothing. In the final hour, Ned's eyes opened with something like clarity. "Robert," he whispered, "I'm here, brother. Tell Jon." Ned struggled for breath. "Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him the truth. All of it. I will, promise me. I promise, Ned. I'll take care of it. All of it." Robert's voice was thick. "Rest now." Ned's eyes closed. His breathing grew shallower. Robert watched his oldest friend slip away and felt something fundamental break inside his chest. At dawn, with the sun just beginning to light the eastern sky, Eddard Stark of Winterfell died. Robert sat beside the body for another hour before he stood and walked to the door. He opened it and found servants and guards waiting anxiously in the corridor. "Lord Stark is dead," Robert said. His voice was flat and cold. "Prepare his body for the journey north. He'll be buried at Winterfell in the crypts with his ancestors." He paused. "And send for Sir Barristan Selmy." Immediately, the servants bowed and scattered. Robert walked to his own chambers and sat on the edge of his bed. He had not slept. He had not eaten. He had spent the night watching his best friend die while absorbing truths that changed everything he thought he knew about his life. Joffrey was not his son. Lyanna had loved Rhaegar. Jon Snow was a Targaryen with a claim to the throne. And Ned, honest, honorable Ned, was gone. Robert stood and walked to the window. King's Landing was waking up below him. The city moved through its morning routines with no idea that the world had just shifted beneath its feet. Robert Baratheon had made a promise to a dying man. Now he had to keep it. Sir Barristan Selmy arrived at the king's chambers within the hour. The Lord Commander of the Kingsguard was old, over 60, but he moved with the lethal grace of a man who had been the finest knight in the Seven Kingdoms for decades. His white cloak was spotless, his armor polished to a mirror shine. "Your Grace," Barristan said, "I heard about Lord Stark. I'm deeply sorry. Ned Stark was murdered," Robert said. Jaime Lannister's men attacked him in the street. A spearman put a blade through his gut. Jaime fled the city. Barristan's face went very still. Jaime did this. Jaime's man did it. But Jaime was there. He commanded the attack. Robert's voice was iron. "I'm stripping him of his white cloak. He's a fugitive and a traitor. If you see him, you are to arrest him or kill him. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Grace." Robert paced the room. "I have orders for you, Sir Barristan. Critical orders. You will follow them exactly and you will speak of them to no one until they are carried out. I am yours to command. You will take 20 men, gold cloaks you trust absolutely, and you will go to the Red Keep's royal apartments. You will arrest Queen Cersei on charges of high treason, adultery, and murder. You will take her to the black cells and hold her there until I decide what to do with her." Barristan stared at him. "Your Grace, what? You heard me. The Queen. You're accusing the Queen of treason and murder?" "I'm not accusing. I'm stating facts that were given to me by Lord Eddard Stark before he died." Robert's voice was very controlled. "Cersei has been committing adultery with her brother Jaime for years. Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen are not my children. They are bastards born of incest. Cersei conspired with Jaime to conceal this treason. She also had Jon Arryn murdered when he discovered the truth." The color had drained from Barristan's face. "That's Your Grace. Those are extraordinary accusations." "They're not accusations. They're truth. Ned Stark investigated, he found proof, and he told me before he died." Robert stopped pacing and looked Barristan in the eye. "I know this is difficult to hear. I know it goes against everything you believe about the sanctity of the royal family. But Sir Barristan, the woman wearing the crown is a traitor and a murderer. The children she claims are mine are bastards. If I do nothing about this, the realm itself is built on a lie." Barristan was silent for a long moment. "You're certain?" "Absolutely certain. And the children, Joffrey and are to be confined to their quarters but not harmed? They're innocent, Barristan. They didn't choose their parents. I will not have them hurt. But they cannot remain in the succession. I'll be making a public announcement declaring them illegitimate. This will mean war," Barristan said quietly. "Tywin Lannister will not accept this. Then we'll fight him, and we'll win." Robert's voice was absolute. "But first, we arrest Cersei." "Can you do this, Sir Barristan? Can you arrest the Queen?" Barristan looked at Robert for a long moment. The old knight's face was troubled, but his eyes were clear. "If what you say is true, if the Queen truly committed treason, then yes, I can and I will." He paused. "But Your Grace, once I arrest her, there's no going back. The moment Cersei is in chains, the Lannisters will know. Word will spread. The realm will fracture." "I know." Robert met his gaze steadily. "Do it anyway." Barristan bowed. "As you command, Your Grace." He turned to leave. "Barristan," Robert called after him. The old knight turned back. "Thank you," Robert said, "for your service, for your loyalty, for being one of the few men in this cursed city I can actually trust." Barristan's expression softened slightly. "It is my honor to serve, Your Grace. Always." He left to carry out his orders. Robert stood alone in his chambers and felt the weight of what he had just set in motion. Within hours, Cersei would be in the black cells, the children would be confined, the truth would begin to spread through the court like wildfire, and then the ravens would fly. To Stannis, to the north, to Tywin Lannister, to Castle Black, with orders that would change Jon Snow's life forever. Robert walked to his desk and began writing the messages himself. He trusted no one else to get the words right. The arrest happened at midday. Cersei was in her solar with her ladies when Sir Barristan Selmy entered with 20 gold cloaks at his back. She looked up from her needlework with an expression of mild surprise that shifted to alarm when she saw the guards. "Sir Barristan," she said carefully. "To what do I owe this visit?" "Queen Cersei Lannister," Barristan said. His voice was formal and unyielding. "By order of King Robert Baratheon, I am placing you under arrest for high treason, adultery, and the murder of Lord Jon Arryn." The solar went absolutely silent. Cersei stood slowly. Her face had gone pale, but her voice was steady. This is absurd. On what grounds? On the grounds that you have committed adultery with your brother Jaime Lannister and passed off his bastard children as legitimate heirs to the throne. Barristan stepped forward. You will come with me peacefully, or you will be carried. The choice is yours. Cersei looked at the 20 armed men behind Barristan. She was calculating. Ned could almost see it, weighing her options, searching for a way out. There was none. Where is the king? She demanded. I want to speak to Robert now. The king does not wish to see you. You will be taken to the black cells to await his judgment. The black cells. Cersei's composure cracked. I am the queen. You cannot. You are a traitor, Barristan said. And you will be treated as such. Seize her. 2 gold cloaks moved forward. Cersei backed away, her face transforming from shock to fury. You will regret this, she hissed. My father will come with every sword in the Westerlands. He will burn this city to the ground. He will... Your father will do what he must, Barristan interrupted. As will we. Take her. They grabbed her arms. Cersei struggled, screaming curses and threats, but the guards were stronger. They dragged her from the solar while her ladies watched in horror. In the corridors, servants and courtiers stopped and stared as the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms was hauled toward the dungeons. Cersei's screams echoed through the Red Keep. Robert, Robert, you cannot do this. I am your wife. I am your queen. But Robert was not there to hear her. He was in the throne room, sitting on the Iron Throne for the first time in weeks, waiting for the court to assemble. Within the hour, every lord and lady in King's Landing would know that the queen had been arrested. And within a day, the entire realm would know why. Robert sat the Iron Throne and looked out over the assembled court. They had come quickly when summoned, drawn by rumors and fear and the certain knowledge that something monumental was happening. The throne room was packed. Lords and ladies, merchants and maesters, gold cloaks and servants, all of them watching Robert with expressions ranging from curiosity to dread. Sansa and Arya Stark stood near the front with Septa Mordain. Both girls looked terrified. Robert had sent them a message through Septa Mordain. Your father died with honor. You are safe. You will go home soon. Grand Maester Pycelle stood to Robert's right, his chains clinking nervously. Varys the Spider lurked in the shadows near a pillar. Littlefinger was notably absent. The Master of Coin had made himself scarce the moment he heard about Cersei's arrest. Robert stood. The court fell silent. I have an announcement, Robert said. His voice carried through the vast hall. Concerning the succession of the Iron Throne and the future of House Lannister. The silence deepened. Queen Cersei Lannister has been arrested for high treason, adultery, and murder. She has committed these crimes over the course of many years with the aid of her brother Jaime Lannister, who is now a fugitive from justice. Robert paused. The children she bore, Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, are not mine. They are bastards born of an incestuous relationship between Cersei and Jaime. The court erupted. Shouts, gasps, denials, questions. The noise was deafening. Robert let it wash over him for a moment before raising his hand for silence. I have proof of this treason, he continued. Proof gathered by Lord Eddard Stark before his death. Proof that shows a clear pattern of deception spanning 15 years. I declare Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen illegitimate and remove them from the succession. They will be treated with mercy. They are innocent of their parents' crimes, but they will not inherit the throne. He looked across the crowd until his eyes found Sansa and Arya. Lord Eddard Stark died last night from wounds sustained in a cowardly attack ordered by Jaime Lannister. He died serving the realm. He died uncovering a treason that threatened to tear the Seven Kingdoms apart. I declare him a hero and a true servant of the crown. Robert's voice was thick. His daughters will return to Winterfell with honor. His name will be remembered with respect, and his killers will face justice. Sansa was crying. Arya's face was stone. I name my brother, Stannis Baratheon of Dragonstone, as my lawful heir. I have sent word to him to come to King's Landing immediately to take his place in the succession. Robert gripped the arms of the Iron Throne, and I declare war on House Lannister. Tywin Lannister has until the next full moon to surrender his daughter and his son to royal justice. If he refuses, I will march west with every sword I can muster, and I will destroy his house root and branch. The court was silent now. Stunned. Any man who aids the Lannisters will be declared a traitor, Robert continued. Any house that shelters Jaime Lannister will face the king's justice. This is not a request. This is a royal decree. He sat back down on the throne. The iron was uncomfortable, digging into his back through his clothes. He had always hated this chair. "Are there any questions?" he asked. No. One spoke. "Then this audience is concluded. Get out." The court emptied quickly. Only Pycelle began nervously. "The accusations against the queen are true," Robert interrupted. "Don't bother defending her, Pycelle. I know exactly what she is." Pycelle fell silent. Varys stepped forward. "A bold move, Your Grace, and a dangerous one. Lord Tywin will not accept this. I know. You'll need allies. The North, certainly. The Riverlands through the Tully connection. Stannis' forces. But that may not be enough if the Tyrells side with Tywin. Then I'll deal with that when it comes." Robert looked at Varys. "I assume your little birds are already spreading the news?" "Information flows like water, Your Grace. I cannot stop it even if I wish to." "Good. I want the whole realm to know. I want every lord from Dorne to the Wall to understand what the Lannisters did. Let them choose their sides with full knowledge." Varys bowed. "As you say, Your Grace." He glided away, leaving Robert alone with Pycelle. "Send a raven to Castle Black," Robert ordered. "Addressed to Lord Commander Jeor Mormont. Tell him I'm releasing Jon Snow from his vows by royal decree. Tell him to send the boy to King's Landing immediately." Pycelle's eyes widened. "Jon Snow? Lord Stark's... Just send the message," Robert snapped. "And Pycelle, if you value your position, you'll forget you heard that name." "Of course, Your Grace." Pycelle shuffled away. Robert sat alone on the Iron Throne and looked at the empty hall. He had done it. He had set everything in motion, the arrests, the declarations, the ravens. Now there was nothing to do but wait for the consequences. He thought of Ned, dying in that bed, extracting promises, trusting Robert to do the right thing. "I'll keep my word, brother," Robert said to the empty throne room. "I'll protect the boy. I'll destroy the Lannisters. I'll make this right." The Iron Throne gave no answer. Robert stood and walked out of the hall, leaving the ugly chair behind. The Raven reached Castle Black on the 5th day after Ned's death. Jon Snow was in the training yard when Lord Commander Jeor Mormont summoned him. The morning was cold, proper cold, the kind that made your fingers ache even through leather gloves. Jon had been running sword drills with Gren and Pipe, working through the forms Ser Roderick had taught him at Winterfell. Ghost lay in the snow nearby, his red eyes watching Jon with that unsettling intelligence that made the other brothers nervous. The white direwolf had grown massive in the months since Jon had found him, already the size of a pony, still growing, silent as his name. "Snow," the shout came from the Lord Commander's steward. "The old bear wants you. Now." Jon handed his practice sword to Gren and crossed the yard. His brothers watched him go with expressions ranging from curiosity to pity. Being summoned by the Lord Commander was rarely good news. Mormont's chambers were warm. A fire burned in the hearth, a luxury most of the watch couldn't afford. The Lord Commander sat at his desk with a raven's message in his gnarled hands. His face was troubled. "Close the door, Snow." Jon obeyed. Ghost slipped in behind him before the door shut, taking up position near the fire. "Sit down," Mormont said. Jon sat. His mind raced through possibilities. Had something happened at Winterfell? Was someone hurt? Dead? Mormont set down the parchment and looked at Jon with an expression that was part sympathy, part frustration. "I've received a royal decree from King Robert Baratheon. It concerns you directly." The old bear's voice was heavy. "Your father, Lord Eddard Stark, is dead, killed in King's Landing 5 days ago." The words hit Jon like a physical blow. The room tilted. His father, Ned Stark, dead. How? Jon's voice came out strangled. Attacked in the street by Lannister men. A gut wound. The infection took him. Mormont's expression softened slightly. "The message says he died with honor, serving the realm. That King Robert mourns him as a brother." Jon couldn't speak. He stared at Mormont and tried to process what he was hearing. His father was dead. The man who had raised him, who had brought him to Winterfell as a baby, who had loved him despite the shame Jon represented. Gone. "There's more," Mormont continued. "The king has issued a decree releasing you from your vows to the Night's Watch. Effective immediately, you're ordered to travel to King's Landing at once." Jon blinked. "What? I don't understand it either." Royal decrees don't typically concern themselves with bastard sons of dead lords, even lords as prominent as Eddard Stark. Mormont picked up the parchment again, but the order is clear. Jon Snow is absolved of all vows to the Night's Watch by royal command. He is to present himself to King Robert in King's Landing without delay. "I don't want to be released," Jon said. "I took vows. I swore. I know what you swore. I was there. Mormont's voice was firm. But Jon, this isn't a request. It's a royal decree. I cannot refuse it. If I tried, Robert could charge me with treason. The Watch survives because we stay out of the realm's politics. We don't defy kings. Jon felt something breaking inside his chest. He had finally found a place where he belonged. The Night's Watch didn't care that he was a bastard. Here, he was just Jon Snow, a brother among brothers. Now that was being ripped away. Why? Jon asked. Why would Robert do this? I don't know. The decree doesn't explain. Mormont stood and walked to the window. But Snow, listen to me. Kings don't summon bastards for no reason. There's something about this that isn't right. Be careful. Jon nodded numbly. You'll leave tomorrow at first light. I'll give you supplies for the journey and a horse. The trip will take roughly 3 weeks if you ride hard. Mormont turned from the window. I'm sorry, Jon. Truly. You are becoming a good ranger. The Watch needs men like you. I don't want to leave. I know, but you don't have a choice. Mormont's voice was gentle now. Go, pack your things, say your farewells. And Jon, whatever Robert wants with you, remember that you're a man of the Night's Watch in spirit even if the vows are broken. Remember what you learned here. Jon stood on shaking legs and walked to the door. Ghost followed. In the corridor outside, Sam was waiting. He had been listening. His round face was full of grief. Jon, Sam said, I'm so sorry. About your father. Jon pulled him into a rough embrace. I have to go. I know. Sam's voice was muffled against Jon's shoulder. But you'll come back, won't you? When the king is done with you, you'll come back to the wall. Jon didn't answer. He didn't know the answer. The Raven reached Dragonstone the same day it reached Castle Black. Stannis Baratheon stood on the windswept battlements of his fortress and read Robert's message 3 times. His jaw was set, his expression unreadable. Davos Seaworth stood nearby, waiting. The Onion Knight had served Stannis for 15 years and had learned to read his moods. This one was complicated, satisfaction mixed with anger, vindication mixed with grief. Robert knows, Stannis finally said. My lord? The incest, Cersei's bastards. Robert knows the truth. Stannis handed Davos the message. Read it. Davos read carefully. His weathered face showed shock, then understanding. He's arrested the queen, Davos said. Declared the children illegitimate. Named you his heir, yes. Then you were right. Jon Arryn was right. The investigation you two conducted was correct. Stannis' voice was flat. Robert's children are Jaime Lannister's bastards born of incest. The succession was built on fraud and treason. I fled to Dragonstone because I knew Cersei would have me killed before I could tell Robert. I sent ravens to every lord in the realm declaring the truth, and none of them believed me. They thought it was ambition, a younger brother trying to steal his brother's throne. But Robert believes you now, because Eddard Stark confirmed it before he died. Ned investigated independently and reached the same conclusion Jon Arryn and I did. Stannis gripped the stone parapet. Robert always trusted Ned more than he trusted me. Even when we were boys at the Eyrie, it was always Ned and Robert, brothers in everything but blood. I was the dutiful younger brother who did what was expected and received no recognition for it. This was old pain, years of accumulated resentment that Stannis rarely spoke aloud. But you were right, Davos said. That matters. Robert knows you were right. He's asking you to come to King's Landing. He's naming you his heir. That's vindication, my lord. Is it? Stannis turned from the parapet. Ned Stark is dead, killed by the same Lannisters who committed this treason. Robert declares war on House Lannister, but he does it only after his best friend dies uncovering the truth. Where was his righteous fury when Jon Arryn died? Where was his investigation then? He trusted the wrong people. He is still weak. Stannis' voice was bitter, but he's my brother, and he's naming me his heir. I have a duty to respond. You'll go to King's Landing? I'll sail with the fleet, every ship we have. Robert wants war with the Lannisters? Then he'll have my swords and my ships. Stannis looked at Davos. Assemble the captains. Tell them we sail within 3 days. And Davos, my lord, send a raven to Melisandre at Asshai. Tell her that the war she predicted is beginning. Tell her I may need her counsel sooner than expected. Davos nodded and left to carry out his orders. Stannis stood alone on the battlements and looked west toward King's Landing. His brother had finally acknowledged the truth, had finally named Stannis what he should have been all along, the rightful heir to the Iron Throne. It should have felt like triumph. Instead, it felt like inevitability, like watching a cart roll downhill toward a cliff and knowing there was no way to stop it. War was coming. Not the War of Five Kings that might have been. Something different. Something that would be decided by steel and fire and Robert's warhammer against Tywin Lannister's army. Stannis had been preparing for this war since the day he fled King's Landing. Now it was finally here. He walked back into the fortress to begin making preparations. The Raven reached the Golden Tooth 2 days after it reached Dragonstone. Tywin Lannister sat in his command tent with the message in his hand. Around him, his captains waited, men who had served House Lannister for decades, who understood that their lord's silences were often more dangerous than his words. Jaime stood to Tywin's right. He had arrived at the camp 3 days earlier, his white cloak discarded, his face haunted. He had told Tywin about the fight outside Littlefinger's brothel, about the spearman's thrust, about Ned Stark's mortal wound. Tywin had listened without interrupting. When Jaime finished, Tywin had simply said, "You fled King's Landing. That was wise. If Robert learns of this before we're ready, he'll have your head." Now Robert knew, not just about Ned's death, everything. Tywin set down the parchment and looked at his assembled commanders. "Robert Baratheon has arrested my daughter on charges of high treason, adultery, and murder. He has declared my grandchildren illegitimate bastards and removed them from the succession. He has named his brother Stannis as his heir, and he has declared war on House Lannister." The tent was silent. "He offers terms," Tywin continued. "Surrender myself and Jaime to royal justice. Accept the disinheritance of my grandchildren. Withdraw all Lannister forces from the field, and submit to the crown's judgment." "What will you do, my lord?" Sir Kevan Lannister asked. Tywin's younger brother stood near the tent entrance, his face troubled. Tywin stood. "I will do what I have always done. I will protect House Lannister. I will not surrender my daughter to be executed. I will not accept the destruction of everything our house has built. I will march on King's Landing with every sword we have, and I will remind Robert Baratheon that lions do not bow to stags." "Robert has the north," Ser Adam Marbrand said carefully. "The Riverlands through the Tully Connection, Stannis' forces. That's 80,000 men, perhaps 90,000 if they call every banner." Tywin's voice was cold. "We have 60,000 already assembled. The Westerlands can provide another 20,000 if we pull every garrison. That's 80,000 on our side. The numbers are roughly equal." "But the politics," Kevin began. "The politics are irrelevant," Tywin interrupted. "Robert has declared war. We are already committed. The only question is whether we fight to win or die with dignity. I choose to win." He looked at Jaime. "You started this. Your attack on Stark in the street, your reckless, stupid decision to confront the hand of the king in public, set this cascade in motion. Now you will help finish it." Jaime's face was pale. "Father, I didn't mean for Ned to die." The spearman acted without, "I don't care about your intentions. I care about consequences. Eddard Stark is dead by your hand, directly or indirectly. Robert now knows about the incest because Stark told him on his deathbed. Our entire position is compromised because you couldn't control your temper." Tywin's voice was ice. "But you're still my son. You're still a Lannister. You will fight for this family or you will die with it. Choose." "I choose family," Jaime said quietly. "Good." Tywin turned to his commanders. "We march east immediately. Our objective is to prevent Robert from consolidating his forces. We'll engage him before Stannis arrives from Dragonstone, before the full northern army reaches him. If we can defeat Robert in the field quickly, the war ends before it truly begins. And if we can't," Kevin asked, "then we fall back to Casterly Rock and force Robert to besiege the most defensible fortress in Westeros. The Rock has never fallen in recorded history. Let Robert waste his army trying to take it." The commanders nodded and began filing out to execute their orders. When the tent was empty except for Tywin, Kevan, and Jaime, Kevan spoke. "Brother, there's something you need to understand. If Robert is declaring this war publicly, if he's arrested Cersei and announced the truth about the children, then he's already won the political battle. The realm will know, every lord, every knight, every common soldier will know that Cersei committed treason. They'll know Joffrey is a bastard. I'm aware. Then you also know we can't win this war. Not really. Even if we defeat Robert's army in the field, even if we hold Casterly Rock, we'll be pariahs. The truth is out. Our position is untenable." Tywin was silent for a long moment. "I know," he finally said, "but I will not surrender my daughter to die in the black cells like a common criminal. I will not let Robert destroy House Lannister without a fight. If we're going to fall, we'll fall as lions, not as dogs begging for mercy." Kevin nodded slowly. "Then we fight." The Raven reached Winterfell 3 days after Ned's death. Catelyn Stark was in the Godswood when Maester Luwin found her. The old Maester's face was gray with grief. He didn't need to speak. Catelyn saw the truth in his eyes before he opened his mouth. "No," she said. "My lady, I'm so sorry. Lord Eddard is dead." The world tilted. Catelyn gripped the weirwood tree for support, her hands pressing against the rough bark. The carved face wept red sap that looked like blood in the fading afternoon light. "How?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Attacked in King's Landing by Lannister men. A mortal wound. The message says he died with honor in his bed, serving the realm." Luwin's voice was gentle. "King Robert mourns him. He declares Lord Stark a hero." Catelyn slid down to sit at the base of the tree. "Ned, her husband, the father of her children, dead. Where are Sansa and Arya?" The question came automatically. "Safe. King Robert is sending them home. They'll be here within a month." That was something. Her daughters were alive and coming home. But Ned— "There's more, my lady," Luwin hesitated. "The message contains information about it's quite extraordinary. Tell me." "King Robert has arrested Queen Cersei for treason. He's declared that Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen are not his children. They're bastards born of incest between Cersei and Jaime Lannister." Catelyn looked up sharply. "What?" "The king has declared war on House Lannister. He's named Stannis Baratheon his heir." And Luwin stopped. "My lady, there's something else. About Jon Snow." The world spun again. "What about Jon?" "The message says, I don't quite understand how to interpret this, but King Robert writes that Jon Snow is not Lord Stark's bastard. He is Lyanna Stark's son. The king vows to protect him." Catelyn stared at the maester. "Lyanna's son." "That's what the message says." "But Lyanna died. Ned told me she died during the rebellion. Fever, at a tower in Dorne. Apparently she died in childbirth," Luwin said carefully. "And Lord Stark, your husband raised her child as his own bastard to protect him." Catelyn's mind raced. Jon Snow, the bastard she had resented for 15 years, the living reminder of Ned's supposed dishonor, not Ned's son at all, but Lyanna's. And if Lyanna died in childbirth, then the father— Rhaegar— Catelyn whispered. "Jon's father was Rhaegar Targaryen." Luwin nodded slowly. "That would be the logical conclusion. Ned lied to me. For 15 years he lied to me. He let me think." She stopped. "Where is Jon now?" "Castle Black. But the king has released him from his vows. Summoned him to King's Landing." Catelyn pressed her hands against her face. Ned was dead. Jon was Lyanna's son. The realm was at war. Her daughters were coming home, but her husband never would. "I need to tell Robb," she said. "Where is he?" "In the Great Hall with the bannermen. Word of Lord Stark's death has already spread." "The lords are gathering." Catelyn stood. "Take me to him." They walked through Winterfell's corridors in silence. Catelyn's mind kept circling back to the same thought. Ned had lied. He had looked her in the eye for 15 years and maintained a deception that had defined their entire marriage. But he had done it to protect a child. Lyanna's child, a boy who would have been killed if Robert had known the truth. A boy Catelyn had treated with cold courtesy at best, active resentment at worst. The Great Hall was full of northern lords. Great Jon Umber stood near the head table, his massive frame tense with barely contained rage. Lord Karstark was there, along with representatives from House Manderly, House Mormont, House Glover. Robb stood at the center of them all. He was 17 years old and looked older, his face set, his auburn hair catching the firelight, his hand on the pommel of his sword. He turned when Catelyn entered. "Mother," he said, "you've heard." "Yes. The Lannisters killed him, murdered him in the street like a dog." Robb's voice was controlled, but his eyes burned. "King Robert has declared war on House Lannister. He's calling the banners. I know. I'm marching south." Robb looked at the assembled lords. "The North will answer the call. Every able man, every sword. We'll join Robert's army and we'll destroy the Lannisters for what they did to father." The lords shouted their approval. The great Jon's voice rose above the rest. "The young wolf rides to war." Catelyn stepped forward. "Robb, I've made my decision, Mother. The bannermen agree. We ride within the week. I'm not arguing with you. I'm coming with you." Robb blinked. "What?" "I'm coming with you. I won't sit in Winterfell waiting for news while my son marches to war." Catelyn's voice was firm. "You'll need counsel. You'll need someone who understands Southern politics. And you'll need your mother." Robb looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Then you'll ride with us." The great Jon laughed. The she-wolf and the young wolf, the Lannisters won't know what hit them. Catelyn looked at her son and saw Ned in his face. The same set of the jaw, the same determination. Robb was marching to war to avenge his father, to fight beside King Robert against the house that had killed Ned Stark. And somewhere south of them, Jon Snow was riding toward King's Landing to learn truths that would shatter his world. Catelyn closed her eyes and sent a silent prayer to whatever gods were listening. Keep them safe. All of them, please. Jon rode south for 3 weeks. The journey was long and cold. He took the King's Road from Castle Black, riding hard, stopping only to sleep and eat. Ghost ran alongside his horse, tireless, silent, always there. Jon had too much time to think during those weeks. About his father's death. About being released from his vows. About what Robert could possibly want with him. The Night's Watch had been the first place Jon had truly belonged. Not as Ned Stark's bastard, not as the shameful evidence of dishonor, just as Jon Snow, a brother among brothers. And now that had been ripped away by royal decree. He thought about Sam, crying when Jon left. About Gren and Pipe trying to be stoic and failing. About Lord Commander Mormont's troubled face as he handed Jon supplies for the journey. The Watch will be here if you ever want to come back, Mormont had said. Your vows may be broken by royal command, but that doesn't mean you can't choose to return someday. Jon had nodded but said nothing. He didn't know if he would ever return. The landscape changed as he rode south. The evergreen forests of the north gave way to rolling hills, then to the fertile farmland of the Riverlands. Jon had never traveled this far south before. Everything felt different, warmer, greener, more crowded. He reached the Crossroads Inn on the 20th day and stopped to rest his horse. The inn was full of travelers, all of them talking about the same thing, the war. King Robert had declared war on the Lannisters. Queen Cersei was imprisoned. Joffrey was a bastard. The North was marching south. Tywin Lannister was assembling his army. Jon sat in the corner of the common room and listened to the rumors swirl around him. None of the travelers paid attention to a young man in black with a white direwolf at his feet. He was just another traveler on the road. On the 22nd day, Jon reached the outskirts of King's Landing. The city was enormous. Jon had grown up hearing about the capital, 1 million people, the greatest city in Westeros, the seat of the Iron Throne. But seeing it was different. The walls stretched for miles. The buildings rose in layers, climbing up 3 hills. And above it all, the Red Keep loomed like a crown of red stone. Jon rode toward the gates. The guards looked at him with suspicion, a young man in the black of the Night's Watch, arriving alone except for a massive direwolf. "State your business," one of the guards said. "I'm Jon Snow. King Robert summoned me from Castle Black. I have the decree here." Jon pulled out the parchment Mormont had given him. The guard read it and his eyes widened. "Wait here." He disappeared into the gatehouse. 10 minutes later, he returned with a gold cloak officer. "Jon Snow?" the officer asked. "Yes. Come with me. The king is expecting you." They led Jon through the city streets. The crowds parted around Ghost, people staring at the direwolf with a mixture of awe and fear. Jon kept his hand on his sword hilt, acutely aware that he was completely out of his depth. They reached the Red Keep and passed through its gates. Jon was taken to a receiving chamber and told to wait. He stood in the empty room for perhaps 20 minutes, Ghost at his side, his heart hammering. Why was he here? What did Robert want? The door opened. A man entered, tall, broad, wearing fine clothes but moving like a warrior. His black beard was shot with gray. His eyes were blue and sharp. Jon recognized him from the royal visit to Winterfell months ago. King Robert Baratheon. Robert stopped and stared at Jon. His expression was complicated. Grief, anger, something that looked almost like recognition. "Jon Snow," Robert said. "Your Grace." Jon bowed. "Sit down, boy. We need to talk." Jon sat. Ghost remained standing, watching Robert with red eyes. Robert poured himself wine from a carafe on the table. He didn't offer any to Jon. He drank deeply, then set down the cup. "Your father is dead," Robert said. "I know, Your Grace. The message from Castle Black, Ned Stark was the finest man I ever knew. The truest friend, the only person in this entire cursed kingdom I could trust completely." Robert's voice was heavy, "and he died because I was too blind to see what was happening under my own roof." Jon said nothing. "Before he died, Ned told me something. 2 things, actually. The first was about Cersei and her bastards. You've probably heard about that. The whole realm knows by now." Robert paused. "The second was about you." Jon's stomach dropped. "Me? Ned told me that you're not his bastard son, that he lied about that to protect you, that your real mother is Lyanna Stark." Robert's eyes were locked on Jon's face. "Do you know who Lyanna Stark was?" My Lord Stark's sister. She died during Robert's rebellion. She was my betrothed, the woman I loved, the woman I started a war over. Robert's voice was rough. She died giving birth to a son, you, and your father wasn't Ned Stark. It was Rhaegar Targaryen. The room spun. Jon gripped the arms of his chair to keep from falling. That can't be true. I'm Ned Stark's bastard. Everyone knows a lie. A lie Ned told to protect you from me. Robert's face twisted. Because if I had known you existed, if I had known you were Rhaegar's son, I would have killed you, just like I approved killing Rhaegar's other children, just like I ordered the assassination of Daenerys Targaryen across the Narrow Sea. Jon couldn't breathe. Rhaegar Targaryen, the Dragon Prince, the man Robert had killed at the Trident. Ned hid you at Winterfell as his bastard. He endured 15 years of people thinking he dishonored his marriage. He let his wife resent him. He did all of it to keep you safe from me. Robert's voice broke. And now he's dead and I have to live with the knowledge that my best friend spent 15 years lying to me because I was too consumed with hatred to be trusted with the truth. I can't. Jon stood abruptly. This isn't true. It can't be true. It is true. Ned confirmed it on his deathbed. He extracted a vow from me that I would protect you, that I wouldn't hurt you for the crime of being born. Robert stood as well, and I intend to keep that vow, but you needed to know the truth. You deserved to know who you really are. I'm Jon Snow, Jon said. His voice was shaking. I'm a bastard. I'm a brother of the Night's Watch. You're Jon. Robert stopped. What's your true name? Did Ned ever tell you? My name is Jon. That's all I know. Then Jon it is, but not Jon Snow. Not anymore. Robert moved closer. I'm going to legitimize you. Give you a true name. Jon Stark if you'll accept it. Or Jon Targaryen if you prefer. Your choice. I don't want either. Jon backed toward the door. I want my father. I want to go home. His voice broke. Ghost pressed against his leg, a solid warm presence. Robert's expression softened. I know, boy. Gods, I know, but your father is gone. Ned is dead. And you can't go back to being what you were because the truth is out now. The realm will know. My army will know. Your family will know. You can't hide anymore. I never wanted to hide. I never wanted to be. Jon stopped. I'm not a Targaryen. I don't want to be a prince. I just want to be Jon. Jon Stark, son of Lyanna Stark, and Eddard Stark in all the ways that matter. I'll make it legal, give you the Stark name, let you go home to Winterfell. Robert paused. Or if you want the truth acknowledged, if you want to be Jon Targaryen, last male heir of House Targaryen, legitimate heir to the throne by blood, that's your choice too. I don't want the throne. I never wanted anything except to belong somewhere. You belong in the North, with your family, the Starks. Robert's voice was firm. I'll make it official. Jon Stark, you'll go home to Winterfell when this war is over. Jon looked at the king, at the man who had killed his father, his real father, at the Trident, who had started a war over Jon's mother, who was now offering Jon a name and a future because a dying man had asked him to. Did he suffer? Jon asked quietly. Ned Stark, when he died, did he suffer? Yes, Robert said. There was no comfort in his honesty. A gut wound is a hard death, but he was brave. He died thinking of you. His last words were, tell Jon I'm sorry, tell him the truth. Jon closed his eyes, tears ran down his face, and he didn't try to stop them. I need time, he said, to think, I can't decide this right now. You have time. The war hasn't truly started yet. Tywin's army is marching east. My forces are assembling. We'll meet in the field within a fortnight. Robert moved to the door. Stay here in the Red Keep. You'll be safe. And Jon, your brother Robb, is marching south with the Northern Army. You'll see him soon. Talk to him. He knew Ned better than almost anyone. Jon stood alone in the chamber with Ghost and tried to comprehend what he had just learned. He was not Ned Stark's son. He was Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen's son. His entire life had been built on a lie told to protect him. And the man who had told that lie, the man Jon had called father, was dead. Jon sank to the floor and buried his face in Ghost's fur. The direwolf made a low sound in his throat, not quite a whine, but something close to comfort. They sat together in the empty room while outside a war prepared to begin. Robb Stark reached King's Landing 12 days after Jon's arrival. The Northern Army, 20,000 strong, made camp outside the city walls. Robb rode through the gates with his mother, the Great Jon, and a dozen bannermen as escort. Robert met them in the throne room. He sat the Iron Throne but stood when Robb entered, which Catelyn noted, a mark of respect. A king standing for a subject showed either deep respect or political calculation. Robb knelt. Your Grace, the North stands with you. Every sword, every man. We'll fight beside you to destroy the Lannisters. Rise, Robb Stark. Robert's voice was heavy. Your father was my brother in everything but blood. His death is a wound that will never heal. I'm grateful the North has answered the call. Robb stood. When do we march west? Within days. Tywin is moving east toward us. We'll meet him in the field and end this quickly. Robert paused. But before we discuss war, there's someone here you need to see. Someone who needs to see you. Who? Your brother. Robb looked confused. Bran and Rickon are at Winterfell. Jon, Robert said. Jon Snow. I summoned him from Castle Black. He's here. Robb's face went through several emotions. Surprise, confusion, then something like relief. Jon's here, but he took his vows. I released him, by royal decree. It's complicated and I'll explain later. But right now he needs his family. He's in the guest quarters of the Red Keep. Go to him. Robert looked at Catelyn. Both of you. Catelyn felt her stomach clench. She hadn't seen Jon since the boy had left for Castle Black months ago. Hadn't spoken to him in years before that, except in cold courtesy. And now she knew the truth, knew that Jon was Lyanna's son, that Ned had lied to protect him, that she had been cruel to an innocent boy for 15 years. A servant led them through the Red Keep's corridors to a suite of guest chambers. He knocked on the door. Jon Snow, your brother is here to see you. The door opened. Jon stood in the doorway looking older than Catelyn remembered, leaner, harder, with something in his gray eyes that spoke of burdens no 15-year-old should carry. Ghost stood behind him, massive and white and silent. For a moment, no one moved. Then Robb crossed the distance and pulled Jon into a fierce embrace. Jon, gods, Jon. I thought, when they said father was dead, I thought I'd never see you again. I thought you were at the wall forever. Jon returned the embrace stiffly. Robb, they pulled apart. Robb studied Jon's face. You look different. A lot has happened. I know. Robert told me some of it. About father dying. About the Lannisters. Robb paused. He said there's more. Things he needs to explain. Yes. Jon's eyes moved past Robb to Catelyn. They looked at each other across the room. Catelyn saw accusation in his gaze, or perhaps that was her own guilt reflected back. Lady Stark, Jon said. His voice was carefully neutral. Jon. Catelyn stepped forward. I need to speak with you, both of you, about what your father told Robert before he died. You know? Jon asked. I received a message from Robert. It explained some of it. That you're not Ned's son. That you're Lyanna's. But she died during the rebellion. She died in childbirth, Catelyn said quietly, giving birth to Jon, and Ned claimed him as his own bastard to protect him. Protect him from what? Robb's voice rose. Why would father? Because Jon's father was Rhaegar Targaryen, Jon said flatly, and Robert would have killed me if he'd known. Robb stared at him. Rhaegar, the Dragon Prince, the one Robert killed at the Trident? Yes, so you're a Targaryen. Robb stopped, processed. You're a prince. You have a claim to the throne. I don't want it. Jon's voice was firm. I'm not a Targaryen. I don't want to be a prince. I just want... He stopped. I don't know what I want anymore. Catelyn stepped forward. Jon, I need to say something. I need to... Her voice broke. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. For 15 years, I treated you with coldness. I resented you. I thought you were evidence of Ned's dishonor, and I punished you for it. And all that time, you were innocent. You were Lyanna's son, and Ned was protecting you, and You didn't know, Jon said quietly. He didn't tell you the truth either. He told me before he left for King's Landing, before he died. He told me you were Lyanna's son, but he made me swear not to tell anyone. Not even you. Catelyn's eyes were full of tears. I should have been kinder to you even when I thought you were Ned's bastard. I should have. You were a child. You deserved better than what I gave you. Jon said nothing for a long moment. I don't blame you, he finally said. You thought I was your husband's bastard. That's reason enough for resentment. And you were never cruel, just distant. I understood. It wasn't enough. Understanding doesn't make it right. Catelyn looked at him. If you'll let me, I'd like to try to make it right. I'd like to you're Lyanna's son. You're my nephew. Your family. Jon's expression softened slightly. I'd like that. Robb put his hand on Jon's shoulder. Brother. Whatever your blood says, you're my brother. You've always been my brother. That doesn't change. Everything changes, Jon said, but there was less bitterness in his voice. Robert wants to legitimize me. Give me a choice, Jon Stark or Jon Targaryen. What do you want? Robb asked. I want to be Jon Stark. I want to go home to Winterfell. I want to honor father's memory. Jon looked at Catelyn. I want to be part of the family instead of standing at the edges. Then that's what you'll be, Catelyn said. Jon Stark. Our nephew. Our family. They stood together in the chamber, 3 people trying to rebuild something that had broken before they understood what they were losing. Outside, the realm prepared for war. Inside, a family began to heal. Stannis Baratheon's fleet arrived at King's Landing 4 days after Jon's reunion with Robb. The royal fleet numbered 200 ships. Warships with iron rams, transport vessels carrying soldiers, supply ships loaded with food and weapons. They filled Blackwater Bay like a forest of masts, their sails bearing the crowned stag of House Baratheon. Robert stood on the docks to greet his brother. It was the first time they had seen each other in over a year, since Stannis had fled to Dragonstone after discovering Cersei's treason. Stannis descended the gangplank with Davos Seaworth at his side. He was lean and hard, his jaw set, his eyes evaluating everything. He stopped before Robert and knelt. Your Grace, Stannis said. His voice was formal. Get up, Stannis. Robert's voice was rough. We're brothers. You don't kneel to me. Stannis rose. You're the king, I kneel to the king. They looked at each other. Years of accumulated resentment hung between them. Robert's favoritism toward Ned, Stannis' rigid sense of duty that Robert had always found exhausting, the 1,000 small slights and disappointments that had defined their relationship. You were right, Robert said, about Cersei, about the bastards, about all of it. I'm sorry I didn't listen. Stannis' expression shifted slightly, not quite softening, but something close. Jon Arryn and I investigated for months. We had proof. But without your support, the proof meant nothing. Ned confirmed it before he died. Told me everything. I arrested Cersei within a day. Good. Stannis paused. The message said you named me your heir. You're my brother. You're next in line. That's law. Robert's voice was heavy. I should have done it the moment I took the throne. Should have made it clear that Joffrey was never... He stopped. But I was blind. I trusted Cersei because I was too lazy to look closely. You trusted her because looking closely would have forced you to act, and acting would have meant admitting you were wrong about your entire marriage. Stannis' voice was blunt. But you're acting now. That's what matters. Robert gripped Stannis' shoulder. I need you in this war. I need your fleet, your soldiers, your strategic mind. Tywin is marching east with 60,000 men. We have 80,000 if we combine our forces. The battle will be decisive. Where will you meet him? In the field. Before he can reach King's Landing, we march west in 3 days. Robert paused. After the war, if I survive, I'm naming you Hand of the King. I want you to help me rebuild what the Lannisters destroyed. Stannis looked genuinely surprised. You're offering me the Hand's position? Ned was my hand. He died serving the realm. I can't replace him. Not truly. But I can give the position to someone I trust. Someone who won't lie to me. That's you, Stannis. For a moment, something like emotion crossed Stannis' face. Then it was gone, replaced by his usual stern expression. I accept, he said, on the condition that when you die, the succession passes smoothly, no chaos. No civil war, the realm cannot afford another conflict. Agreed. Robert released his brother's shoulder. Come, we have a war to plan. They walked together toward the Red Keep. Behind them, Stannis' soldiers began disembarking, 15,000 men disciplined and ready. The combined army of Robert, Stannis, and the North now numbered 95,000. Tywin Lannister was outnumbered, but he was still coming. The War Council convened that evening in the Red Keep's Great Hall. Robert sat at the head of the table with Stannis to his right and Robb Stark to his left. Jon stood near the back with Catelyn, observing but not participating. Sir Barristan Selmy stood by the door. Davos Seaworth represented Stannis' interests. The Great Jon represented the Northern Lords. A map of the Riverlands covered the table, marked with positions and routes. Tywin has 60,000 men, Stannis said without preamble. He's marching east from the Golden Tooth. His objective is either to relieve King's Landing or to engage us in the field before we can consolidate our position. We're already consolidated, Robert said. 95,000 men. How does he plan to defeat those numbers? He doesn't, Stannis replied. Tywin Lannister is many things, but he's not suicidal. He knows the numbers don't favor him. His only realistic option is to retreat to Casterly Rock and force a siege. Then we'll besiege Casterly Rock, Robert said. Starve him out. That could take a year, maybe more. Casterly Rock has never fallen in recorded history. It's the most defensible fortress in Westeros. Stannis traced a line on the map, but if we can catch Tywin in the field before he reaches the rock, we can end this war in a single battle. How? Robb asked. He had been mostly quiet during the council, listening and learning. By forcing him to fight, Stannis said. We have 3 armies. Robert's forces from the Crown Lands, my fleet, and soldiers from Dragonstone, and the North. If we split our forces and attack Tywin from multiple directions simultaneously, he can't retreat without exposing his flanks. He'll have to stand and fight. Robert leaned over the map. Where? Here. Stannis pointed to a location on the map. The Crossroads. It's where the King's Road meets the River Road. Open terrain, good visibility, room for cavalry to maneuver. If we can draw Tywin there, we can surround him. How do we draw him? The great Jon rumbled. We let him think he's chasing us, Stannis said. We send a smaller force, perhaps 10,000 men, west along the King's Road. They engage Tywin's vanguard, then retreat east, leading him toward the Crossroads. Meanwhile, the main army circles north and south, cutting off his retreat. When Tywin arrives at the Crossroads, he finds himself surrounded by 95,000 men. Robert grinned. You want to bait him? Yes. And Tywin will take the bait because he's proud. He won't retreat from a force he outnumbers 6. 2. He'll pursue, thinking he can crush our vanguard and then pivot to deal with the main army. By the time he realizes it's a trap, it will be too late. Robb studied the map. Who leads the vanguard? The bait force? Someone Tywin will want to catch, Stannis said. He looked at Robb. You, the son of Eddard Stark, marching under the direwolf banner. Tywin will see a chance to crush the North before dealing with Robert. He won't be able to resist. Robb's eyes lit up. I can do that. No, Catelyn said sharply. Everyone turned to look at her. You're asking my son to be bait, to lead 10,000 men against Tywin Lannister's entire army and rely on you arriving in time to save him. Mother, Robb began. It's war, Lady Stark, Stannis said. His voice was not unkind, but it was firm. Men die in war. The question is whether they die for a purpose. Your son leading the vanguard serves a purpose. It draws Tywin into a trap that will end the war. And if the trap fails? If Tywin is faster than you expect or if your timing is off? Catelyn's voice was controlled, but her hands were clenched. Then my son dies and the North loses its heir. Robert spoke. Catelyn, I understand your fear. Ned was my brother. I loved him like blood. I'm asking his son to take a risk that could get him killed. But we need to end this war quickly. Every day we wait, more men die. If Robb can draw Tywin into the open, we save thousands of lives. Catelyn looked at Robb. This is your decision, not mine. You're old enough to choose. Robb met her gaze steadily. I want to do this. For father. For the North. I can do this, mother. She closed her eyes briefly. Then I'll pray to the gods that you're right. It's settled. Robb leads the vanguard. 10,000 men, half northern, half crownlands. They march west tomorrow. The rest of us follow 2 days later, moving to flank positions. We spring the trap at the Crossroads within a week. The council continued for another hour, working through logistics and contingencies. When it finally ended, Jon found himself walking with Robb through the Red Keep's corridors. You're really doing this, Jon said. I have to. It's what father would have done. Father would have found a way that didn't involve using his son as bait. Robb smiled slightly. Maybe, but I'm not father. I don't know what I am yet. I need to prove myself, not to Robert or Stannis, to myself. You don't need to prove anything. You're Robb Stark. You're the heir to Winterfell. That's enough. Is it? Robb stopped walking. Jon, do you ever feel like you're living in someone else's story? Like the choices you make don't really matter because everything was already decided before you were born? Jon thought about that, about being Rhaegar's son, about a war fought before he was born that had defined his entire life, about Ned's lie and Robert's vow and the weight of expectations he had never asked for. Yes, he said. Every day. Then you understand, I need to make my own choices, even if they're dangerous. Maybe especially if they're dangerous. Robb gripped Jon's shoulder. I'm going to be fine. Stannis knows what he's doing, and when the war is over, we'll go home together. All of us, the Stark family, whole again. Jon wanted to believe him. "Promise me you'll be careful." "I promise," Robb smiled. "And Jon, when we get home, you're going to tell me everything. About Castle Black, about the Wall, about what it's like to know your whole life was built on a lie. We'll drink Winterfell dry and talk until dawn." "I'd like that." They embraced briefly, then Robb continued down the corridor to prepare for tomorrow's march, and Jon stood alone, wondering if he would ever see his brother alive again. The vanguard marched west the next morning. Jon stood on the battlements of the Red Keep and watched them go. 10,000 men, banners flying, the grey direwolf of Stark, the crowned stag of Baratheon, the sigils of a dozen northern houses. Robb rode at the front on a grey stallion, his armor polished, his sword at his side. Catelyn stood beside Jon. She didn't speak, she just watched until the army disappeared over the western hills. "He'll be all right," Jon said quietly. "You don't know that." "No, but I know Robb. He's smart and he's careful and he has good men around him. The great Jon won't let anything happen to him." Catelyn was silent for a moment. "I've lost my husband. I can't lose my son." "You won't." She looked at Jon. "You can't promise that either." "No." Jon met her eyes. "But I can promise that if anything happens to Robb, I'll make sure the Lannisters pay for it." For him and for Ned both. Catelyn's expression softened slightly. "You sound like your father when you say that." "Like Ned. He was my father, in every way that mattered." "Yes." She touched his arm. "He loved you, Jon. Whatever else was complicated about your parentage, that was never complicated. He loved you completely." Jon's throat tightened. "I know." They stood together on the battlements and watched the empty road where Robb's army had disappeared, and both of them prayed to whatever gods were listening. 4 days later, Robert's main army marched west, 85,000 men in 3 columns, Robert commanding the center, Stannis the south, a northern lord named Roose Bolton commanding the north. The plan was to circle around Tywin's position and converge at the crossroads from 3 directions, while Robb's vanguard led Tywin into the trap. Jon marched with Robert's column. The king had offered to let him stay in King's Landing, but Jon had refused. If Robb was fighting, Jon would fight too. Ghost padded alongside Jon's horse, drawing stares from soldiers who had never seen a direwolf before. The white wolf was enormous now, larger than any natural wolf, with red eyes that seemed to see through men. They marched for 3 days. The terrain shifted from the fertile farmlands around King's Landing to the rolling hills of the Riverlands. Scouts brought reports every few hours Robb's vanguard had engaged Tywin's outriders. Skirmishes, nothing major. Robb was retreating east as planned, drawing Tywin after him. On the evening of the 3rd day, a rider arrived at Robert's camp with urgent news. Jon was in his tent when he heard the commotion. He emerged to find Robert, Stannis, and Ser Barristan gathered around a mud-splattered scout. "Say it again," Robert commanded. "The vanguard engaged Tywin's main force this morning," the scout said. "Lord Robb led a fighting retreat exactly as planned. But Tywin's pursuit was faster than expected. The vanguard is being pressed hard. They're making for the crossroads, but Tywin is right behind them." "How far?" Stannis asked. "They'll reach the crossroads by tomorrow afternoon. Tywin will be there by evening." Stannis looked at Robert. "We're still a day's march away. If we push hard, we can arrive by tomorrow night. But that means Robb will be alone at the crossroads for several hours." "How many men does he have left?" Robert's voice was tight. 9,000. "He's lost 1,000 in the fighting retreat." Robert swore. "Tywin has 60,000. If he catches Robb before we arrive, then the vanguard will be destroyed and Robb Stark will die." Stannis finished. "We need to march through the night, no rest. Push the men to their limits." "Do it," Robert ordered. "Sound the march. We move now." The camp erupted into organized chaos. Soldiers packed gear, horses were saddled, supply wagons were loaded. Within an hour, the army was moving west again under torchlight. Jon rode beside Robert. The king's face was grim. "This is my fault," Robert said. "I put that boy in danger. If he dies, he won't die," Jon said. "Robb is smart. He'll hold the crossroads until we arrive." "You don't know that. I know my brother. He's not going to die in the Riverlands." Jon's voice was firm. "He's going to live. He's going to go home, and he's going to be Lord of Winterfell someday. That's what Ned would have wanted. That's what's going to happen." Robert looked at Jon. "You sound very certain." "I have to be." They rode through the night. The army moved in near silence, 80 to 5,000 men marching through darkness toward a battle that would decide the war. The Battle of the Crossroads began at noon the next day. Robb Stark's 9,000 men held the crossroads against Tywin Lannister's 60,000. It was not a siege. Robb had no fortifications, no walls, no natural defenses. It was simply 9,000 men in open terrain trying to survive long enough for Robert's army to arrive. They formed a defensive square with cavalry on the flanks and archers in the center. The Lannister army surrounded them on three sides, their crimson banners filling the horizon. Tywin did not order an immediate assault. He was too careful for that. He positioned his forces, brought up siege equipment, and prepared for a methodical destruction of Robb's vanguard. But he also sent a herald under a flag of truce. Robb rode forward to meet him with the Great Jon at his side. The herald was a knight in Lannister crimson, his face carefully neutral. "Lord Tywin offers terms," the herald said. "Surrender now and you will be treated as prisoners of war. Your men will be allowed to return home after swearing oaths. You personally will be held for ransom." "Denied," Robb said immediately. Lord Tywin anticipated that response. "He asked me to remind you that you are outnumbered 6-1. Your position is hopeless. You will die here along with every man who follows you. Is that really what Lord Eddard Stark would have wanted for his son?" "My father would have wanted me to keep my word," Robb said. "I told King Robert I would draw Tywin Lannister to this location. I've done that. Now I'll hold this position until Robert arrives. Robert is 3 days away. You'll be dead in 3 hours. Then I'll be dead. Deliver my refusal to your lord." The herald studied Robb for a moment. "You're very young to die for nothing." "I'm not dying for nothing. I'm dying for my father, for my family, for the North." Robb turned his horse. "Tell Tywin Lannister that the young wolf does not surrender." The herald rode back to Tywin's lines. The Great Jon looked at Robb. "That was well said, my lord. But we're going to die here unless Robert arrives soon." "I know." Robb looked at the Lannister army surrounding them. "So we make them pay for every inch. We hold until Robert comes. And if Robert doesn't come, then we die as Starks," the Great Jon finished. I can live with that." The Lannister assault began an hour later. Robert's army arrived at the Crossroads 3 hours after the battle began. Jon saw the smoke first, columns of it rising from the battlefield, dark against the afternoon sky. Then he heard the sounds, the clash of steel, the screams of men and horses, the deep thunder of thousands fighting and dying. Robert spurred his horse forward. "Form up, we attack immediately." The army deployed from march formation to battle lines with practiced efficiency. Robert commanded the center. Stannis took the right flank. Roose Bolton held the left. 85,000 men surrounding Tywin's 60,000, who were in turn surrounding Robb's beleaguered 9,000. Tywin saw them coming. He tried to pivot his forces to face the new threat, but his army was too committed to the assault on Robb's position. The Lannister formations broke apart in confusion as orders conflicted, and commanders tried to respond to attacks from multiple directions. Robert led the charge personally. Jon rode beside him. He had never been in a real battle before. The fight at Castle Black against the wildlings had been his only taste of combat, and this was something else entirely. The noise was overwhelming. The smell of blood and shit and fear filled the air. Men died by the hundreds in the first minutes of fighting. Ghost ran ahead of Jon's horse, tearing into Lannister soldiers with savage efficiency. The dire wolf was a nightmare made flesh, white fur streaked with red, jaws that crushed throats, eyes that burned like coals. Jon fought with a borrowed sword, not Longclaw, which he'd left at the wall, but a castle-forged blade that felt strange in his hands. He killed his first man within minutes, then his second, then he stopped counting. The battle became a blur of violence. Jon fought beside Robert, trying to keep pace with a king who swung his warhammer with the fury of a man possessed. Robert was 50 years old and fat and drunk half the time, but in battle he was something else, a warrior from the songs, unstoppable and terrible. The Lannister lines broke within an hour. Tywin's forces were surrounded on all sides, outnumbered, caught between Robert's fresh troops and Robb's desperate survivors. The discipline that had held them together crumbled. Men threw down their weapons and ran. Others surrendered in clusters. The battle became a rout, but Tywin Lannister did not run. He rallied his personal guard, perhaps 3,000 men, the cream of the Westerlands, and formed a defensive square in the center of the battlefield. His banner flew above them, the golden lion on crimson. Robert saw it and turned his horse toward the square. "No quarter for Tywin," he roared. "The lion dies today." The king charged directly at Tywin's position. Jon followed, Ghost at his side, unable to stop himself from following Robert into the heart of the killing field. The final confrontation happened in a space that had been cleared by violence. Tywin Lannister sat on his horse surrounded by his dying guard. His armor was dented and bloodied. His face was set in an expression of cold fury. Robert rode into the circle and dismounted. He held his warhammer in both hands. Tywin Lannister, Robert's voice carried across the battlefield. Face me. Single combat your life against mine. Tywin dismounted. He drew his sword, a magnificent blade with a lion's head pommel. He was 70 years old and he moved like a man half that age. I accept, Tywin said. When I kill you, Robert Baratheon, your brother inherits a broken kingdom and a war he cannot win. When I kill you, the Westerlands falls and the Lannister name becomes a footnote in history. Robert raised his warhammer. For Ned Stark, for every man you've murdered, for your treason. They fought. Jon had heard stories about Robert's prowess in combat. He had heard that Robert killed Rhaegar at the Trident, that the king was the finest warrior in Westeros when his blood was up. Watching him fight Tywin, Jon believed every story. Robert was not graceful. He was not elegant. He was raw power and fury made flesh. The warhammer moved in arcs that could break horses, and Tywin gave ground constantly, dodging rather than blocking, because blocking would mean broken bones. But Tywin was skilled. He was one of the finest swordsmen of his generation, trained in strategy and single combat both. He targeted Robert's knees, his hands, anywhere the armor was weak. He drew blood cuts on Robert's arms, a slash across his thigh. Robert didn't seem to notice. He pressed forward relentlessly. The warhammer caught Tywin's shoulder and spun him halfway around. Tywin stumbled. Robert brought the hammer down in an overhead blow that would have crushed Tywin's skull if it had connected. Tywin rolled aside. The hammer hit the ground hard enough to crater the earth. Tywin came up fast and drove his sword toward Robert's exposed side. Robert caught the blade with his offhand, grabbed the steel with his gauntleted fist and held it. Tywin tried to pull back, but Robert was stronger. The king yanked Tywin forward off balance and brought the warhammer around in a horizontal arc. The hammer caught Tywin Lannister in the chest. The sound was terrible, armor crumbling, ribs breaking, the wet crack of a body destroyed from inside. Tywin flew backward and hit the ground hard. He tried to rise but couldn't. Blood poured from his mouth. Robert stood over him. Do you yield? Tywin looked up at the king. His face was gray with pain, but his eyes were clear and full of hatred. A lion, he said through bloody lips, does not yield to a stag, then die as a lion. Robert brought the warhammer down one final time. Tywin Lannister's skull crushed. The Lord of Casterly Rock, the richest and most powerful man in Westeros, died in the mud at the Crossroads, with his enemy standing over him. Robert raised the warhammer to the sky. His voice carried across the battlefield. The Lannister army is broken. Throw down your weapons and you will live. Fight on and you will die. The remaining Lannister soldiers surrendered within minutes. The battle was over. Jon stood among the corpses and the wounded and the exhausted survivors, and felt nothing but numbness. This was war. This was what it looked like when men fought for thrones and honor and revenge. This was what Ned had died trying to prevent. The aftermath took days. 40,000 Lannister soldiers surrendered. 10,000 were dead. The remaining 10,000, including Jaime Lannister, had scattered and fled west. Robert sent riders after the fleeing soldiers with orders to capture Jaime alive. I want to look that Kingslayer in the eye before I execute him, the king said. Cersei's fate was decided in a war council 3 days after the battle. Robert sat at the head of the table with Stannis, Robb, and his senior commanders. The mood was grim despite the victory. Thousands of their own men had died. The wounded filled field hospitals for miles. Cersei Lannister must be executed, Stannis said. She committed high treason. The law is clear. I know. Robert's voice was heavy. I've already given the order. She'll be beheaded in the courtyard of the Red Keep when we return to King's Landing. No trial by combat. No public spectacle. Just justice. And the children? Robb asked quietly. Robert rubbed his face. They're innocent. Joffrey is a vicious little shit, but he's 12 years old and he didn't choose his parents. I've ordered them sent to the Citadel. They'll be raised as wards of the Maesters. New names, new identities. They'll never wear the Lannister name again. Mercy, Stannis observed. That's wise. The realm needs to see that this war was about justice, not revenge. This war was absolutely about revenge, Robert said, but it was also about doing what's right. The children don't deserve to die for what their mother did. The council moved on to other matters, casualties, prisoners, the occupation of Casterly Rock, which had surrendered without a fight once news of Tywin's death arrived, the redistribution of Lannister lands and wealth. But Jon barely listened. He kept thinking about Cersei and the Black Cells, waiting to die. about 3 children losing their names and their family, about Tywin's crushed skull and the blood in the mud. Justice, Robert called it, it felt more like carnage. They found Jaime Lannister 2 weeks after the battle. He was hiding in a village near Lannisport, trying to disappear among the small folk. The villagers recognized him, it's hard to hide when you're famous, and turned him over to Robert's soldiers. They brought him back to the army's camp in chains. Jon was there when they dragged Jaime before Robert. The Kingslayer looked terrible, gaunt, unshaven, his golden armor replaced with peasant rags, but his eyes were still defiant. Robert Baratheon, Jaime said, congratulations, you've won. You killed Ned Stark, Robert said. Your men put a spear through his gut on your orders. I didn't order the killing blow. I ordered an attack to free my brother. A man acted on instinct and Ned was wounded. Jaime's voice was bitter. I fled because I'm a coward. I left him to die because I was afraid of you. Does that make you feel better? No. Robert stood. But you're going to pay for it anyway. The choice is yours. The headsman's block or the wall. Those are your only options. Jaime laughed. It was an ugly sound. The wall. Join the Night's Watch. Spend the rest of my life freezing on a wall in the middle of nowhere, protecting a realm that hates me. He paused. I'll take the wall. At least it's not death. You'll leave tomorrow, Robert said. Under guard. You'll take your vows and you'll never see King's Landing or the Westerlands again. Your sister dies in 3 days. You won't be there to see it. Something broke in Jaime's expression. Cersei is a traitor and a murderer. She dies for her crimes. Robert's voice was final. Be grateful I'm showing you more mercy than you showed Ned Stark. They took Jaime away. Jon watched him go and felt something like pity. Jaime Lannister had been the finest knight in Westeros. Now he was a prisoner being sent to die slowly at the wall instead of quickly on a scaffold. The war was over. The Lannisters were destroyed. So why didn't it feel like victory? Cersei Lannister was executed in the courtyard of the Red Keep on a gray morning 3 weeks after Tywin's death. Jon did not attend, neither did Robb or Catelyn, but Robert was there, standing on the battlements and watching as the headsman carried out the sentence. Cersei died with her head held high. Her last words, according to those who heard them, were, "My children are innocent." Then the sword fell and the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms died. Robert returned to the throne room afterward and sat on the Iron Throne for the first time in weeks. Stannis stood beside him. Jon and Robb were present as witnesses. "It's done," Robert said. His voice was hollow. "The Lannisters are finished. Tywin is dead. Cersei is dead. Jaime is on his way to the wall. Casterly Rock is occupied. The Westerlands are broken. Justice is done," Stannis corrected. "Is it?" Robert looked at his brother. "Thousands of men died. The realm is scarred. The Westerlands will take a generation to recover, all because I was too blind to see that my wife was sleeping with her brother and passing off bastards as my children." "The fault is not yours," Stannis said. "The fault is Cersei's and Tywin's. They committed treason. You punished them for it. That's what kings do." Robert was quiet for a moment. Then he looked at Jon. "Come here, boy." Jon approached the throne. Robert stood and descended the steps to stand before him. "I made a promise to your father," Robert said, "to Ned. I promised I would protect you and I would give you a choice. Jon Snow or Jon Targaryen, or whoever you want to be. The choice is yours." Jon took a breath. "I want to be Jon Stark." Robert nodded. "Then by my authority as King of the Seven Kingdoms, I legitimize you as Jon Stark, true-born son of House Stark. You are no longer a bastard. You are a Stark of Winterfell, with all the rights and privileges that come with that name." He paused. "I also offer you a choice. You could be my heir. You're Rhaegar's son. You have Targaryen blood. You have a claim to the throne that's arguably stronger than mine or Stannis's. If you wanted the throne, I would support that claim." "I don't want it," Jon said immediately. "The throne should go to Stannis. He's your lawful heir. I just want to go home. To Winterfell? To Winterfell. To the north? To my family." Jon looked at Robb to prepare for what's coming. "The White Walkers," Robert said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, the dead are coming. The Night's Watch is weak. The wall needs support. The north needs to prepare." Jon's voice was firm. "I'm not a prince. I'm not a king. I'm a Stark. And the Starks have defended the north for 8,000 years. That's what I'm going to do." Robert studied him for a long moment. Then he smiled, the first genuine smile Jon had seen on his face since Ned's death. "You sound exactly like Ned when you say that. He'd be proud of you." "I hope so." Robert turned to Stannis. "You're my heir. When I die, you'll be king. Do you accept?" "It is my duty," Stannis said. "I accept." "Good." Robert sat back down on the Iron Throne. He looked exhausted. Then it settled. The war is over. The succession is secure. The realm can heal. He paused. I'm naming you Hand of the King, Stannis. You'll help me rebuild what the Lannisters destroyed. And when I'm gone, which won't be long, the way I drink, you'll be ready to rule. I will serve, Stannis said. Robert looked out over the throne room. Dismissed. All of you. I need to be alone. They filed out. Jon walked with Robb and Catelyn through the Red Keep's corridors. We're going home, Robb said. His voice was light with relief. The war is over. We're going home. Yes, Catelyn said. She looked at Jon. All of us, together. Jon felt something unclench in his chest. Home. Winterfell. The North. His family. For the first time since Ned's death, he allowed himself to believe it was possible. The journey north took a month. Jon, Robb, and Catelyn traveled with the Northern Army, what remained of it. 7,000 men had marched south, 5,000 were returning home, 2,000 had died in the war. They reached Winterfell on the first day of autumn. Snow was already falling early this year, the maesters said. Winter was coming fast. Sansa and Arya were waiting at the gates. Both girls ran to their mother and brothers, and the reunion was tearful and joyful and painful all at once. They were together again, but Ned was not there to complete the circle. That evening, they gathered in the Great Hall, the Stark family and their closest bannermen, sharing a meal and stories and the simple relief of being home. Jon sat with Ghost at his feet and looked around the table, Catelyn at the head, Robb beside her, Sansa and Arya talking over each other, Bran and Rickon asking questions about the war, family, his family, not by blood in some cases, but by everything that mattered. After the meal, Robb found Jon on the battlements. They stood together looking north toward the wall. What do you see? Robb asked. Darkness, Jon said. And what's waiting in it? The White Walkers. Yes, they're coming, Robb, sooner than anyone thinks. The Night's Watch is weak. The wall needs help. And the North, he stopped. We need to prepare. Dragonglass weapons, stockpiled food. Alliances with the wildlings. Everything we can do to be ready when the dead come south. Then we'll do it, Robb said. You and me. Together. We'll prepare the North for the long night. He paused. But Jon, you need to rest first. You've been fighting for months. You learned that your whole life was built on a lie. You watched a war tear the realm apart. You need time to heal. There isn't time. There's always time. The dead won't come tomorrow or next week. We have months, maybe years. Robb gripped his shoulder. Take the time, be with your family, let yourself be Jon Stark instead of a soldier or a bastard or anything else. Just be Jon. I don't know how to do that. Neither do I. But we'll figure it out together. They stood on the battlements while snow fell around them, two brothers looking north toward a threat they could not yet see but knew was coming. Epilogue. 6 months later, Jon Stark stood in the godswood of Winterfell and looked at the weirwood tree. The carved face wept red sap that looked like blood in the winter light. Snow covered the ground 3 feet deep. He had spent the past 6 months working, organizing, preparing. He had sent ravens to every northern house asking them to mine dragonglass and stockpile food. He had established communication with the Night's Watch, offering support and supplies. He had even sent envoys to the wildlings beyond the wall, though those talks were difficult and slow. The North was preparing for the long night. It wouldn't be enough, Jon knew that. When the dead came, they would come in numbers that no amount of preparation could fully counter. But it was something. It was more than nothing. Footsteps crunched in the snow behind him. Jon turned to find Catelyn approaching. Your brother is looking for you, she said. Something about a new shipment of obsidian from Dragonstone. I'll find him. Jon paused. Thank you for everything. For accepting me. For helping me feel like I belong here. Catelyn smiled. You do belong here. You always did. I'm just sorry it took me 15 years to see it. They stood together in the godswood for a moment. Do you miss him? Jon asked. Ned? Every day. Her voice was quiet. Every single day. But I'm grateful for what he gave me, for the family he built, for the love he showed even when it was hard. She looked at Jon. He loved you so much, Jon. He gave up his honor to protect you. That's not a small thing. I know. Jon's voice was thick. I just wish I could tell him I understand, that I'm grateful. That i.e., he knows, Catelyn interrupted gently. Wherever he is, he knows. Jon nodded. He didn't trust himself to speak. Catelyn left. Jon stood alone in the godswood with Ghost at his side. He thought about Ned, about Robert, who had kept his vow and was now slowly drinking himself to death on the Iron Throne, while Stannis actually ruled. about the war that had killed thousands, about the truth that had shattered his world and remade it. "I'm not a prince," Jon said quietly to the weirwood tree. "I'm not a bastard. I'm not a Targaryen. I'm a Stark, and when the dead come, I'll fight as a Stark. For the North, for my family, for the father who loved me enough to lie." The wind moved through the weirwood's red leaves. Snow fell steadily. Winter had come to Winterfell. The long night was coming behind it. But Jon Stark was ready. The pack would survive, together. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.